Bye.
Hey there, Michelle.
Hello.
How are you today?
I am awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be my first episode of on Untamed and Beautiful Podcast, and I'm so happy to have you. Just the powerhouse of a woman that you are. Um, we can kind of just talk to the viewers and listeners, and just how we met, and we can start and go from there.
I love the synchronicity of it, of just, I don't even know how I found one of your posts and it just so resonated with me and navigating a separation and the emotions that came with it and, all the craziness that went around with it. It just really spoke to those wounds, those parts inside of me that were really struggling. And I just felt so seen and validated in the post that you were writing. And I was like, oh my God, it's like she's in my head. Like everything you said was so bang on. And then I don't know, I think I probably reached out, sent you a couple messages, and then we ended up chatting. And then we realized that there was 3 or 4 different outfits that we had that were almost exactly the same. You'd post a picture, I'm like, I have a picture in an outfit like that. And then we did a Zoom call together and I'm like, I have a dress just like your jacket. Obviously, we were meant to connect in so many ways. So it's been a fun journey. And then here we are.
And then here we are. And when we did have our one conversation, I mean, it lasted how many, like almost what, 2 hours?
Yeah.
2 hours of us
We
just,
ate because we were starving.
we both had busy days and it was just such a beautiful conversation. And it's amazing how the universe works in mysterious ways because I was longing for, that connection, like that powerhouse of a woman connection who's like, and that's based on our podcast today, like walking through the fire, right? So, that phoenix rising, and we sit in very uncomfortable places. I wouldn't say uncomfortable, like dark places with a lot of people. Sometimes we're going through journeys with them and they've kind of are starting where we've already kind of walked through that. So it's kind of nice to have somebody who's already at not that level. Well, yeah, that level of already combating something that we're trying to like, we can just move forward. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, what's going to be our next steps of this? And it's kind of like, how do we go back and then team up to empower other people to be able to walk through the fire and us just be on the other side being like, hey, we're here, you know?
I've been there, got a little toasty, but I'm out the other side.
We're on the other side. And how beautiful it really can be once you jump through that fire and let everything burn around you, burn that layer of skin. We are in the year of the snake, right? So we talk about shedding that skin. Um, so it's based on fear. So like, I think that's what holds a lot of people back is the fear of it, and understanding that fear. So I kind of wanted to like just pick your brain and like discuss some common fears women face in personal and professional lives. And then I kind of would love to hear like one of your stories that kind of before and after, before the fire and after the fire.
So many fires. Which fire do we pick?
Let's say I think the most pivotal one, the most pivotal fire that you've had to walk through. I know we've gone through many things, but I think there's like that last one to get where you are right now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever one
Yeah.
you would have discussed.
And then so many things. So, the idea of fear of the unknown is so scary to so many, yet the unknown is the only certain thing in life. Like everything is always changing, nothing will ever stay the same. So the one constant thing is the thing we fear the most, which is kind of ironic.
Yes.
So when we can look at it that way and go, okay, well, life is ever changing. And on the other side of that, even more amazing things can happen. How can I trust that this journey, as uncomfortable as it is for my highest good? And on the other side of that will be growth and lessons and learning and, things along the way that I can navigate it differently. So I didn't have that awareness. The first fire I walked through when I was, pregnant and had a 3-year-old, and my marriage ended, and I left and raised my 2 girls on my own. And I had no idea. I had really no tools, no skills. It was literally just by the seat of my pants. I had to keep going and provide and do and all the things, and struggling along the way from that to fast forward now 23 years later. I've got a lot more wisdom and understanding underneath me that when these things happen, as uncomfortable as they are, I have this inner trust and knowing of, I don't have to like it, I don't have to understand it, but can I trust and accept that it's here for a reason? There's a purpose, there's a learning, there's something that I'm meant to go through in this, otherwise it wouldn't be happening. And so even just the acceptance and the surrender helps navigate that fear in such a huge way.
Yeah, I think for me too, I'm one thing that helped me walk through the fire and like get rid of the fear is like um dying. Like I was at the most pivotal point in my life where it was either my life or to keep go or to walk through that fire, right? So like it kind of gave me it was a big reflection of like nobody's promised tomorrow, and if I don't do it, then I will never know. You know what I mean? So it's the void. Yeah, it's definitely going into the unknown. I did have somebody ask me a question the other day and was like, what made you do what you did? And I was like, the fear actually made me do it. But I mean, I just thought, it was like, if I would die tomorrow, I would want to accomplish everything on my bucket list. I've always wanted to own my own healing practice or a little shop, a boutique. I've always wanted to have a nonprofit helping women and children in crisis my whole life. And that's been my journey. And I've just been sitting, thinking that I was stuck. And the thought of dying actually helped me walk through the fire, you
Mm.
know?
I love that
Yeah.
you said that, because often it's those crisis moments that give us the courage to do the thing that we're actually meant to do, right?
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
lost my job, wanted to be a coach and empower women, but I was a single mom with a mortgage. I'm like, I can't do that. So I'm just going to stay in this job that's, sucking my soul, and, think that's the way that it needed to be. And in losing my job and not being able to find another one was literally pushing me into, I need to start my business because there was no other option. And so in that
Yeah.
moment that could be seen as the darkness, it's not fair, why did this happen to me, is the catalyst that, sometimes kicks us in the ass.
Right.
You're taking too long, so let me close all possible doors so that
Uh-huh.
you can figure out which one to go through.
Yeah, and the universe has a way of like slapping you in the face too. It's like, okay, you're not listening. Well, I'll really make you listen, and
Yeah, louder, harder.
louder, harder. And ever since that moment too, the saying YOLO, you only live
Yeah.
once. Well, I say YODO, you only die once, you live every day, right?
Mm.
So I've been using that instead of YOLO. And, and that's even what I told the person the other day. I said YODO. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, you only die once, you live every day. And I wouldn't want, like I said, nobody's promised tomorrow. So I would never want to have a life without purpose, right? So, and that's what I set out a year ago on my little journey of packing my little U-Haul and going off grid for almost a year. I just got my first little apartment a couple months ago, and I gave up everything materialistic around me, even had to let go of some of my loved ones, to do this journey of healing, because I set out on a journey. I said, I am going to die if I don't do this. And
Mhm.
I am going to die if I don't do this. And I did it. And I've been able to, in that year span, I've walking through that fire and jumping through jumping through that fear, that little fear ring, as I call it. And it's been an amazing journey because if I would die tomorrow, I would live a happy life because I set out and I did everything that I said I was going to do, and I did it in a year.
Mhm.
Yeah, March 6th would be my 1 year of giving up everything to walk this healing journey of not only myself, but then coming back and helping so many other women and even men and children kind of pave that. I paved a way for them that it's not that scary, you know? So,
And
yeah.
there's a couple things you said too, is my beliefs around fear is number one, fear is imagined. So we're imagining a scenario that hasn't actually happened, and we're afraid of this imaginary scenario that's not
Yeah.
even real. And so we're
Right.
held back by the imagination of the possibility of maybe possibly one day something might happen. But what
Yeah.
about all the other possibilities of what could go right, and how will I grow, and what will I gain, and all of those things? So understanding that we're fearing this imaginary outcome that might not and likely won't happen. Like, how many times have we worried about something and replayed it in our mind a million times, and then it never happened? And
Yeah.
think about how much stress and anxiety and time and energy that you put into this worry of something that never actually happened. And so I made myself a promise when I realized myself doing that. I was like, unless it's in my reality right here, right now, I will not give it the energy to worry, to fear, to do all of those things until it's in my present reality, because it's just a waste of my time and energy.
Exactly. And anytime that I am presented with fear now, I run towards it. Like I don't run away from it. And everybody's like, how are you able to like burn through all of this like this shit? And I'm like, because I'm not afraid of it. You can't
Yep.
be afraid of it. Like I run straight towards it. And I was talking to one of my friends. He's in the military, and that's one of the things is they're taught to run towards fear, right? You know, they're taught to do that. And sometimes it's easier to see the object in front of you, right? But when it's not in front of you and you can't see it, like even the strongest of strong men can't even run towards that, you know? So it's kind of like in a thing of, yeah, like when I was with my shaman too, he's like, you have to run so far to you run towards the darkness and not away from it. And that will, it's kind of like a rebirthing every single time that you do that. And
I
you're burning.
really understood that concept, sorry, this year when
Yeah,
somebody said like the buffalo run into the storm, like all the other animals run away from it and they run through it because that's the only way to get through it. And it's, not always fun, but it's literally the only way through.
it's
You
the
got to feel it
fastest
to
way.
heal it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and before, like before I set out on this journey, I mean, it would take me years to muster up the courage to even go do something. Do you know what I mean? Like, even think about just even doing something for yourself. Sometimes you're just like, it takes, well, I'll put it off. I'll put it off. I'll put it off because it's just like, well, maybe I might not have fun or do this or, we always question, we always put these scenarios in our head, right? And now, but then it'd take us forever. And if instead you just go and do it and literally all of that stuff that probably would have taken me my whole life, a whole lifetime, I did it in a year span. And yeah,
Yeah.
it is like the buffalo running in towards the storm. And I think that's just so magical. And another thing too is I've noticed we're not alone anymore. We went from such a nuclear dynamic too, so going through fearful things, as I would call it or say, we have somebody walking that journey with us now because there's so many beautiful souls like us that we're like, hey, we're here, we'll walk through that with you, or we're on the other side, you have to make the leap, but hey, we have the water, we'll cool you down, we'll heal you, we'll kind of give you the ointment kind of So I have noticed doing this journey, there's a lot more people that are not fearful anymore. Because we do live in a society based on fear as well, though, too. So, I mean, there's so many societal factors that come into play as well with fear, because that's all we're taught. That's what we're taught to fear failure, you know, to fear everything. That's what I've noticed. I don't know about you, but
And I think we talked about this on our call. Did I share with you when my girlfriend asked me to facilitate at her nude goddess retreat? Did I share that with you?
yeah, you did. But you can share again if you'd like.
Yeah. So it's just the idea of like fearing the thing that you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to like it. I don't want to do it. So my girlfriend's like, hey, I'm having a nude goddess retreat. Do you want to facilitate? I'm like, no, I am not facilitating naked, hanging out with naked people, women. Like, no, I'm not doing it. So she just laughed at me and she's like, okay, I'll ask you next year. She asked me again, and as no is about to come out of my mouth, like you said, is like the thing that I'm resisting, the thing that I'm afraid of, the thing that I don't want to do. I need to do the thing. I need to go into it. I need to embrace it. And I was like, fine, I will do it. Pretty sure I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to stretch myself out of my comfort zone and get uncomfortable, learning to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. I'm like, what better way to do that than naked? And it took a while, I'm not going to lie. I psyched myself up for a while. And, we got to wear cute little kimonos and pretty bras and panties. And then everybody just kind of like stripped down to their level of comfort. Anyway, by the time we were done, I freaking loved it. It was the most freeing, liberating experience of my life to just be like, my body is no longer a barrier. It's no longer a barrier. It's not something that I need to avoid or resist or anything. I've moved past that barrier. And so now it doesn't have control over me. It doesn't have power over me. And now I can freely choose to do so many different things. Because, I mean, if you can facilitate naked, you can kind of do just about anything. So not a lot of things scare me after that. I'm like, I did that and I was fine. I actually liked it. And I went back a second year. So you never know the things you might like.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said naked, because that's the most vulnerable that we can get, right? You're seeing everything because we're taught to, body shame and stuff like that. But that was one thing when I went out to the farm, off grid, I was naked all the time. I was naked in the waterfall. I was naked in my lawn chairs that I had sitting at, because if you're able to just get naked in front of the world and not just declothe yourself, but like even just think of the mask that we carry, and just I am very vulnerable with the world with my social media platform, and I talk about my struggles, and that's how I've been able to actually like walk through the fire in a lot of ways, is because when you're able to get so vulnerable and naked with yourself, to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, this is me, this is all of me. It gives you a whole new light on yourself too, and so naked is a good it's always fun to be naked too.
In every way. And I think, when we are naked with ourselves, that is where our true authenticity lives, because
Yeah,
there isn't the masks, there isn't the fear, there isn't the pretending. I am just real and raw and authentically, vulnerably me. And here I am, take it or leave it. I'm not adjusting myself to make you comfortable. So
exactly.
here's who I am. Here's how I show up. You take it, you leave it, and that's okay. And we've been taught in society that we need to be liked by everybody. And I remember
Mhm.
it was in my 40s, one of the gentlemen in our church at the time was like, I don't care if everybody likes me. And my eyes got huge. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, isn't that the purpose of life, is to make sure everyone likes you? And he's like, no, you don't have to be for everybody, and that's okay. And it was such a mind-blowing experience for me, because I'd never heard anyone say, we're taught be the good girl, and make sure you please everybody and do what everybody else wants above what you need and want. And so we've been so programmed that it's okay that everybody doesn't like us, when we can give ourselves permission to let go of, I need to be perfect, I need to be liked, I need to be accepted. And that's where that fear of failure and judgment and acceptance and all of those things come from. And if we can just let go all of that, the freedom that comes from that is huge.
So liberating. I opened up one of the most controversial shops in my little small town, right? And that's one of my things is, until you can sit at my table and truly understand who I am, then you don't need to be there. And that's what we are so filled with judgment and shame, and I think that's what keeps us fear based. That's one of the biggest reasonings where it keeps us stuck, because it's the judgment of the world, and even ourselves. Like, we like to judge ourselves too. I think we're our
Oh,
biggest critics, but I
absolutely.
think we are so used to the outside looking in versus us looking from the inside out, right? So yeah, it's like getting naked and getting vulnerable with not only yourself but even people, because they're going to have their opinions no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, I set out on a journey. I did, one of my biggest things was, my kids. I had to kind of leave my kids behind, and the judgment and the shame, that held me back for so many years. I was divorced for almost like 4 years at the time. And there was no, uh, it was all his family and his friends in Indiana, and I wanted to come back home, you know what I mean? And I think that was one of my biggest things, was judgment of being a mom. And I know that's one of the biggest thing in for women, for myself, was, how's it going to look as a mother doing this? And I came to the realization, and that's where I had to get vulnerable with myself. I had to get naked with myself and say, if I don't take this leap, if I don't walk through this fire, my kids are not going to have a mother, and they will have to question every single day why my mom didn't want to live, So, and I think pushing through that fear that would mean more to my children, like, than anything, because and I just talked to my daughter the other day, and I told her, I said, I'm sorry if I put any trauma on you doing this. I said, but I would never want you to have to question anything, because I'm still here, I'm still living, and you're able to talk to me, and we're able to work through whatever, trauma, fear that she has on her end too. And I think this is going to be a pathway for my daughter to be able to take those leaps of faith and walk through the fire herself, and not wait until she's so broken, like, and that's going to give her the courage and the strength to be able to do it at a young age. She's going to be 14 this year. So, now she understands. She's like, I understand, mom. Now that you've talked to me, and we've worked through that, because in a sense, I felt like I was abandoning my children, and it was the fear of being judged by other people, that kind of held me back. But as soon as I said, I, I had to walk through it, like, it was kind of like my Phoenix rising moment, um, and I was able to give them a better and stronger mother that's healing not only generational curses for myself, but for them as well. So with that being said,
I want to add one thing to that is
yeah,
just, when we really get honest with ourselves,
yeah,
we're so afraid of that external judgment, but there's also often a layer mirrored back of our own
mhm,
self-judgment.
yeah,
Like, where was
yeah,
I judging myself? Where did I have that story about myself? And I needed to make peace with that more so than making peace with the external. So it's easy to blame everything outside of ourselves, but when
yeah,
we're super vulnerable and naked and honest, you have to be like, oh well, actually I was judging myself in that moment too.
mhm, yeah,
That's where it's hard to look in the mirror sometimes and realize how hard we are on ourselves and how we hold ourselves back.
Unless you live in a dance studio where all you have is mirrors. So I have to look at myself every single day.
I am
But
just
no, that is
seeing
true.
my
I had I had to look at myself in the mirror in that moment and being like, okay, who's judging who, like, and it was one of those things where the external influences versus my internal influence. And that's where I came to say, you have to do this, but so with that being said, rise like the phoenix. Can you define what it means to rise like a phoenix in your opinion?
Oh, such a loaded question. To
It
rise.
is.
Yeah, it's to just know that, and this seems like so counterintuitive, but life is going to be challenging. There are going to be moments. There isn't a human on earth that hasn't faced adversity, challenge, struggles, heartbreak, all of the things. And so when we can understand this is part of life, it's not that you did anything wrong, you're not being punished. It is just a natural evolution of the journey that we're on. And I think those of us that are on this growth journey, and to be light showers, way showers, we have to, I think, initiate way more of these experiences so that we can share, right? If I had a perfect life and you had a perfect life, what would we talk about and how would we help others? I have a silver spoon. I've never struggled, but let me help you through your struggles. This
You're
doesn't work.
right.
Right? So it's like we have to go through the initiation process of like, I walked through it. Here's what I learned. And if I can just trust that what needs to be released and let go is what's happening in this process. And like you said, we're in the year of the snake. We just came out of the year of the dragon, of like burning it all up and now shedding and releasing everything that's not serving us. I believe we're in such a rapid escalation into our higher selves and the highest version that we can be, that we have to let all this stuff go. It can't come with us. The doubts, the uncertainty, the people pleasing, the fears, the doubts, all of that can't come with us to rise to this higher vibration and purpose that we're all being called into. And so we have to allow this process to happen, as painful as it is, as heart-wrenching it is, as it is. The only thing that got me through and why I'm probably still here is on some level trusting that it was part of my journey. I agreed to this in this lifetime and I don't know why. I don't get it. It's fucking bullshit. I don't know if we're allowed to swear, but I just did anyway.
We are allowed to
Okay,
swear.
Like, this is a bullshit journey and I don't think I agreed to this and I would like to renegotiate the terms of this whole life thing that I'm living. And I've had that conversation with myself so many times. But to just know that what happens on the other side of that will be even more amazing if you just trust that you will get there. And I just came out of probably 4 or 5 months of the darkest initiation that I've had in my whole growth journey, of like literally questioning everything. And I felt that the invitation for me was, Michelle, without anybody and anything, without your business, without the success, without the clients, without the friends, without the partner, with nothing, can you love and accept yourself just for who you are?
Yeah.
And it was painful as hell. But I couldn't deny that literally everything was crumbling around me and everything and everyone was shifting and changing. I was like, okay, what is this inviting me to? What is it asking me? Can I love myself for just who I am and not what I do, who I'm surrounded with, how I contribute, how I make a difference? Because we get our worth and value from all of that. So can I be worthy and valuable if there's nothing but just me?
And I have been noticing it's kind of women coming into like my services and getting advised and stuff like that. We're stepping from a dark femme, like the dark femme, into the divine feminine. And a lot of women they're coming to me with symptoms, like it's actually presenting in physical symptoms of this awakening. And it's kind of been really, really not funny in a sense, but because I'm like, my client before was just telling me they feel like they're burning alive, from the inside out. And I'm like, that is you going through your phoenix rising, right? So I do a lot of work with the kundalini. So think of the snake, the serpent, right? And it's kind of like that stagnant energy that has just been sitting in all of us women for such a long time. And it's like aching to come out now.
It's
And
burning. It's
yeah,
burning to
it's
come out.
burning. Like you, like it literally is like, all right. And it starts from the sacral, right? And then it works your way up. So a lot of women are like, yeah, it's like they're menopausal. And I have clients from the ages of probably 24 to like 87, and they're all saying the same thing. And that's a huge gap. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a little gap. And it's like, I feel like I'm going through menopause. Like I sell a menopause tincture, and I've went through so many because the women are like, it's like they're getting the night sweats. And that's the transformation of the phoenix. I'm like, just let it burn, like let that. We've repressed so much and we've shoved down so much rage and anger that that's where the phoenix rising to me is just releasing that, obviously not projecting it at somebody who doesn't deserve it, but I mean,
Right.
it's that dark feminine rage that's coming up, coming up. And as soon as we let that out, I think that was one thing that was kind of like my phoenix rising moment, was out at the farm. And I just screamed. I cried. I was in the waterfall out at the farm. And after that moment, it was like all of this burning rage just came out. And that was pretty much like my phoenix rising moment. Was I was able to purge all of that anger. We've been pushed down for such a long time, and I don't care what nationality you are as a woman. It's all women across the board, where we sit. It's like we've we've been suppressed for a long time, and that phoenix rising energy is coming in, right? We just had the year of the dragon, the high priestess energy. And it's like, burn it down. Now it's ready to shed, when you get a burn, right? That
Yeah.
you have to
And
you have to let it shed, right?
I remember being in, I think, grade 2 or grade 3, watching the movie of the Phoenix. It was like, now that I think back to the animation of it, it was super lame. But I was so fascinated with this like golden bird that came out of this egg at grade 3. I had no idea really the meaning behind it. But as you're saying that just now, I'm like, I remember being so fascinated with that,
Yeah.
and just some kind of attraction and knowing towards that. And I sometimes use the analogy too of the butterfly. Like the butterfly, literally the caterpillar turns to goo and there's nothing left of it, and it has to rebuild itself in this dark cocoon where it's mush, and it doesn't know that anything's going to survive beyond I'm liquefying into nothing in order to turn into this beautiful butterfly. And so to just know that when we are in the darkness, when it feels like the most pressure, that's where diamonds are created. That's how butterflies are created. So these brilliant, beautiful things are created in the darkness under a lot of pressure. And we are no different than that. So where is it alchemizing and burning away what it is we don't need, that won't serve us, to reveal the beauty, the gem, the gold, in the process of releasing anything that is not here to serve us.
And I love how you said in the darkness and alchemizing. That is one tool that we have not had sharpened, you know what I mean, for many generations since we've gotten out of the tribal like mentality. Is we aren't taught how to alchemize all of this. We're women, we can alchemize anything. Think of, you get brought a little thing and you can create a meal with it, or even create life, right? From a tiny little sperm
A little
and
sperm and a little egg, and it can
a
make a
little
human
sperm,
being.
right? And we create this and we alchemize, and we're always taught that like magic is bad, right? And the majority of you know, with religion and stuff. I don't want to get on a whole big religion thing, but
Yeah.
it's but to alchemize that, you know, and we are alchemists, and we do create the most beautiful things in the darkness. And it's in those pivotal moments when I was raging out at the farm, when I was raging and I was so angry and I was mad, but I ended up saying, I am never gonna let women ever feel like this ever again. So like I started my ministry, you know, like out of that pain. And so like that's what I use my platform, I use my healing center, I teach people how to alchemize, I sharpen that tool for them. It's like that's when you get the most creative. That's when the magic happens. And then when you come out, it's kind of like planting a seed in a sense too. That's another transformation, right? You plant
Yeah.
it in the darkness and then you water it and water it. And then something beautiful ends up happening after that. It's like,
And it's not overnight and it's not the next day.
no.
Like you have to wait and it takes time and you have to be patient. And so, yeah, there's that whole journey. And for me, when I first started coaching, it was about, you know, positivity and, you know, finding the lessons and the gratitude and all the great things. And yes, those are very important. But what I've learned to through my own struggles is that we need to embrace the darkness, the anger, the insecurity, the I feel scared, all of those things that we don't want to admit that we feel, that we experience. The first time I had to utter the words as a confidence coach, I feel insecure, like I wanted to puke. I did not want to own that I had a part of me that might feel insecure. And my fiance at the time, his behavior was creating a lot of insecurity in me. And it was projected back to me that it was my insecurity that was not okay, when really it was my intuition and my knowing that, wait a minute, something's up and I'm not feeling safe and secure. And so allowing ourselves to be okay with having anger, having insecurity, having fears, having loneliness, like all of those feelings, you shouldn't feel lonely. You should just be content with yourself and be one with the universe. It's like, no, we have all of these parts of ourselves. And the more we try to repress them and deny them, the stronger they get.
Oh yeah. And they come out screaming.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, it is so true. And I forget where I was going with this, but I'll come back to it. But yeah, it does come out raging. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Positivity, because there is toxic positivity. And I think you and I had talked about it when we had our little phone conversation when we met the first time, our 2 hour long conversation of
Yeah.
so many things. But it is. And we're taught, okay, just put a smile on your face and like positive, positive, positive. But until you go into that sacral, into that root, you know, not the until you go into that root chakra, you're never going to be able to get here. You know what I mean? Until you pull out that infection at the root cause of it. Yeah. So it is sitting in the darkness. It's going underneath all of those layers. It's getting naked with yourself. It is, until you cauterize and burn out that infection, you can't, because like you said, it's going to come back. It's going to come back vengeful too. It's kind of like
bigger, louder, harder. I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with my clients. I'm like, I am listening at the whisper because I have done too many cosmic 2x4s to the head that I am on at the minute. Like, I don't argue anymore. I remember one time things had been really slow with my business. I'm standing at the coffee maker, waiting for my coffee to come out first thing in the morning. And I was like, wonder why it's so slow. And instantly I heard, you need to take a break. And I was like, no, I don't. And the voice was like, yes, you do. I was like, okay, point taken. I will not argue because I know if I don't, I will go willingly or unwillingly. So I choose to go willingly. I've seen people get into car accidents, break their foot, have accidents, all of these things because they weren't listening. and something will then intervene to make you rest, to make you pause, to make you, have to reflect on those things that you've been running from and avoiding. So like you said, I go into it now. Okay, I'm listening. I'm the buffalo. I will go into the storm and figure out what we need to sit with and be with, because I'm not willing to do that again.
No, because it's 10 times worse if you
Oh
just
my
like,
God, yes. Yes, it's way worse.
it is way worse. I'm like, please, universe. I mean, and that's where it is. We sit in these positions, even though we've walked through one fire, you know what I mean? Doesn't mean that we're not gonna walk through another one. Like, um, sometimes being on this platform, I do get placed on like a pedestal of like, okay, you've healed, you're like doing this journey and you're doing it in front of the world. But sometimes, people, um, sometimes the beautiful souls that come into my life, they're like, they think I'm perfection. And I have to tell them, I have to be like, listen, I am the most imperfect person that you ever meet. I was just laying in my bed for 3 days crying. I am a little inspirational because I'm not afraid of it. I run towards it, whatever comes to my face. But there are days where I'm like, I get to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, like, and I want to highlight that too, is because even though we are strong, badass fucking women, we still have our moments, and I think that is, with the people who listen to the podcast and stuff like that, like to make it easy, like, hey, we're human too,
Absolutely.
we can help sharpen tools for people. We all have all of the tools to survive in this painfully beautiful world that I call it.
Yeah. And we can just move through it quicker. Once
Yeah.
you've done it a few times, you're like, okay, I know I'll get through the other side. So instead of resisting, how can I just surrender and allow it to happen? And when you do that, it'll move through quicker.
Yeah.
And having community, having other women and people around you to remind you of your light, your love, your heart, your soul, all of those things. When you can't see it, you forget, you are too deep in the pain. And honest to God, like, the people that mirrored that the most to me, I don't know if I would have made it through, or made it through the way that I did, if I didn't have those people that are like, you are a beautiful soul. You're so strong. You'll get through this. I believe in you. We need you. Like, I heard so many times, like, we need you. The world needs you. You can't give up.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I think that's what keeps me going too, in a sense.
Having that community.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I had a phone call coming in. Um, it is the community, and it is the people who safe people. Do you know what I mean? It's been my
Yes.
safe people that have come in, and kind of when I've taken the blows, I've been taking the hits and the fire, like getting beat up, doing that, having a safe place to come back and land to heal. And I was just talking to one of my friends the other day of wintertime. It's like we're supposed to go in and we're supposed to hibernate, we're supposed to rest. And we are so conditioned to go, 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 go all the time. And sometimes that sabotages us in a sense too, to be able to work through things, because we're so exhausted, even when we come up to, the crossroads, or where I say like something that makes us fear, it's like the crossroads that we come up to, and it's like we can't even, we're so tired. So
I'm glad
that
you
kind of
brought
helps
that up,
the
because I
fear,
think
like,
you and I talked about too is understanding the cycles of nature, and
mhm,
the moon cycles, the winter, spring, summer, fall, our own feminine cycles. We are not meant to be performing, doing all the things all the time. And even though we're women in business that have this passion and purpose, we
yeah,
can't go 24/7, 365 days a year. And so this winter was the first time that I didn't want to show up in my business. I'm like, I don't feel like it. I don't feel it. Nothing's happening. I just want to lay on the couch and do nothing. And I had to give myself permission to do that and not
mhm,
feel guilty. because I'm not meant to. And so listening to my body and allowing it to have that quiet pause time of just hibernation. And I am an extroverted extrovert. And so I like people and doing things all the time. And being alone after my separation, I didn't make plans with friends. I made no plans on the weekend. Like I was just good to be home with me all the time, always. Like I'd get in the car and go, when's the last time I left the house? I think it was maybe a week ago. Like I have no idea. And I'm just coming out of that season now, but I had to really give myself grace and permission. It's okay to pause. It's okay to just take time and go within and sit with yourself instead of being distracted of like, where's the next thing? Where's the next distraction? What can I do to not just sit and feel and be with ourselves?
And I think that was my biggest thing going out to the farm, right? I lived at a lake community in Indiana, and I went from, I mean, there was stuff going on all the time at the lake, to 300 acres out in the middle of nowhere, running naked and wild on the farm. And then I ended up getting my shop, and then I ended up moving into town. So that was like the biggest culture shock too, because I had no time out there. Do you know what I mean? I was able to just wake up when the sun came up, went to bed when the sun went down because I didn't have electric. You know what I mean? So I was running off a generator and gas was expensive. So it was like I had to work with the sun to get anything accomplished, right? So like, and I didn't even have internet out there. I had to drive up on the hill, you know, like 3 miles away just to get on Facebook, do my posts, my little videos, because I make my videos out on the farm, but then I would drive 3 miles up on the hill to upload them to my social media platform, you know,
Yeah.
until I got Starlink a couple months later. But I mean, it was, and then just coming back into town, it was a whole different like beast because everything's moving in constant motion. No wonder why there's like so much friction going on in the world. I mean, think of science and it's like it's everything's moving at such fast pace all the time. And we're just like, I there for a couple months, I'm like, holy shit. I was like, I don't know if I want to move back into town, like
Well, it's overwhelming to our whole entire system. And I think we really need to be mindful of where we put our time and energy and be very protective of our peace because it's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of the media and the world and the chaos and all the things to be so protective of your peace and your energy of like, I am not entering that realm because it'll take me out. And I know,
yeah,
with all the world events, I have to shut a lot of that off because I can't be in my purpose, serving and being my best self when I'm getting sucked into all the chaos and the craziness in the world. I'm like, what's within my control and not to be oblivious, but what's within my control that I can show up and be my best self? And what do I
yeah.
need to get rid of? What boundaries do I need to place or with people, with time, with social media, with all of it so that I can be good inside with me?
Yeah. And I think, that was, one of the questions that I had, kind of on my little paper over here was, practical tips for managing and overcoming that, and I think boundaries will save your fucking life. And I do not care. Like, I don't place boundaries on other people. I place them on myself. This is my house. And if you want to come sit at my table, these are my boundaries. You know what I mean? I'm very, very protective of my time. And that's one thing people don't really respect is time. And that's something that they'll cross boundary. They'll keep crossing that boundary of trying to take all that time away. And when you come from when you're an addict to people pleasing, right? Your time is dictated all the time. And because we can't say no, you know what I mean? Like where I say there's other addictions out there other than alcohol and drugs. I was addicted, addict to people pleasing.
Do you know
And
what's funny though? Because I challenged that thought of like, I'm not good at saying no, because actually you're really good at saying no because you say no to yourself every single time.
yes.
So you're willing to disappoint another, but you're
Mhm.
at the expense of disappointing yourself over and over and over. And when you can see that, like, oh my God, I'm saying no to myself all the time. Why would I say no to me and yes to everybody else instead of I need to say yes to me and no to the people that aren't in alignment? And I think we've become so disconnected from our own bodies because our body knows what is a yes and what is a no. And the more we can feel that in our body of like, does this feel like something I want to move towards, or does it feel like something I want to move away from? Or when I say yes, do I then have resentment? And then am I bitter and angry and bitchy to this person I just said yes to, and they have no idea? And I
Mhm.
experienced this with my partner. I didn't know he was people pleasing. And so there was this resentment and this tone and this underlying energy that I was like, what is all of that? And then realizing he had been stifling his own truth, his own needs, his own things, and then became bitter and angry and resentful to me, which didn't serve the relationship at all. But he thought he was doing it in service of us, but it actually was the detriment of. So, where do
Yeah.
we do that in our life where we are resenting the people that we're saying yes to? They have no control over that. You made the choice to break your own
Yeah.
boundaries, and then you're mad at them for it.
I call that rage cleaning. Like that's the mom version of rage cleaning. It's like,
My dad used to do that.
right? Or, yeah, like where it's like there was no communicated expectations. It was all uncommunicated, but it's in your head. And it's like, but I don't know. Like, and that's where I tell people who come onto my timeline, I'm like, I respect boundaries. So if you have any boundaries, let's get them out of the way right now. Like, because I don't want to come to that point where it's like you lose friendships and stuff over that, like, because it's the uncommunicated expectation. So I'm very forthcoming to my boundaries. Like
Oh, me too.
anybody knows when they're coming into my cert, like, or if it does arise, like, hey, I didn't realize that was a boundary of mine. But hey, I explained to him, okay, I'm being triggered by something. And I get to the root cause, and then I talk to that person. Like that's one thing is we don't communicate anymore, and I think that's a very helpful hint of like, and it will help the fear process as well, is because you've already communicated it. You've already communicated to yourself. You've already communicated to others, so it kind of helps bypass that. I've noticed if I have to let somebody go, right? Like just there's somebody who's been in my life that has crossed multiple boundaries that I've communicated to that, hey, these are my needs that need to be met. And sometimes we have the fear of letting go, right? So that was one of my biggest things walking me through, hey, I've communicated this. This is something that my do's and my don'ts, like I have my inside my house boundaries and I have my outside boundaries, so and it's and if you can't respect that and respect my boundaries, then I have to let you go and I have to walk forward, in a sense. And a lot of people, they're like, you have no problem detaching, and I was like, because we are not attached to anything. So like, and that's another fear thing, is like, we are not attached to anything. Anything could happen in a split moment that you lose, not people, places, and things, and that was one of my healthy habits that I started within myself, is like the respect I had for myself too. And I think that's where I was going with that. But yeah, the respect that I had for myself and being able to let things go, and that's not only friendships or relationships, but that's anything. You get pissed off, and sometimes we hold on to that, it's because we've put so much time and energy in it. And it's like, I'm like, that's the fear controlling that. Let it go, detach from it, and keep walking forward.
Well, and that whole idea around, the fear around communicating our boundaries and what our needs are. People think that if I stay silent, it serves the relationship, but it actually destroys the relationship, because anything
Yeah,
you don't speak, that truth exists in the field between you, and people feel it, they sense it. And it's like inviting someone to play a game, but you don't tell them the rules of the game. Come play this
exactly.
game with me. I'm not going to tell you the rules, and you can just flounder around trying to figure it out. And then when you break the rules, I'm going to be pissed off at you, and eventually it's going to destroy our relationship. Instead of saying, here's the rules of the game, here's the rules of
Yeah.
engagement with me, so you know we're all on the same page, and then we can go from an even platform of knowing what is to be expected. But when we don't communicate that, and then we're upset with people when they don't meet them, yes, it's a whole different scenario when we have and they don't. But we don't do a relationship any service when we stay silent and we don't communicate that. And the other thing I learned about boundaries this year was I had a boundary and I kept trying to force it for him to comply to my boundary. And so I thought a boundary was making someone agree and live by the boundary, instead
Yeah.
of the boundary is for me. And if you don't
Mhm.
meet it, here's what I'm going to do when you don't, which is,
Yep.
I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And so I had it backwards. And that was a huge aha for me of like, oh, that boundary is mine. And if you, the goal isn't to make you adhere to it. The goal is for me to know what to do when you don't honor it.
Yeah.
And how do I honor myself first?
It just popped in my head how many things are based on fear, like even just communicating.
Oh,
I was like, now that we're actually talking about fear, I'm like, and like walking through it, right? There's so many things that are associated with fear. It's even just communication. We get scared. We're fearful of even telling somebody what we need.
yes. And I didn't know, because I'm not like that. I'm a pretty fiery Leo child that came out very vocal and very strong-willed. So that was not often a thing I struggled with. And I didn't know a lot of the people that I knew that I thought were fairly, confident, empowered women were terrified to speak certain things.
Yeah.
And so when we would be spending time together and they're like, you just did that thing, you just asked for that, I'm like, yeah, why don't you? And they're like, oh my god, I would be terrified to say that. I was like, what? And so is, being someone who's very confident and strong in that, I had to learn to be aware of other people and really feel into, is their yes really a yes, or is their yes because they're too afraid to say no? Are they
Yeah.
people pleasing? Are they afraid to share with me? So it helped me be more discerning that not everybody is speaking their truth and not
Exactly.
honoring their own boundaries and their own needs and being able to speak up and say no.
And that's why I think when me and you had our conversation, when we had our first little phone call, I got so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's somebody who's not afraid to speak up, who is not afraid to leave things unsaid. And when we are that kind of, those kind of powerhouse women, there's a lot of people who are intimidated by that too. So it kind of,
I think that was one of the posts.
like, and there's another fear thing, because then other women who we're just trying to help, we're trying to like empower and stuff like that, they kind of like shell up in a sense. And I kind of have to like walk them out of there. I'm like, listen, this comes with a lot of honing in on who I am and my vulnerability. And you'll get there one day, like we'll get you there. But I did notice that was like, when you are a force to be reckoned with too, it comes with a lot of people who fear you in a sense. And that's not even our nature. But like, I wouldn't say fear, or
But it's not their fear of us, it's their fear
yeah,
of their own inner stuff.
exactly. So but it was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, women who, where it's like, jump in there, get in there. I'll help sharpen tools to help you walk through, because you're a confidence coach, right? Like,
Yep.
even I'm like not intimidated, but like, you know, there's different strengths in different women and stuff like that. And it's like, that's what we've been taught, to fear each other as well as women.
Mhm.
So I, where we have our different strengths and different things is, you know, the societal too is like, we're taught to compete with other women. We're taught to be jealous of other women. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of internal stuff as well. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it felt like I needed to like talk about it because, um, I don't know. It's helping other women where we can work together to kind of walk through this fire together. And that, okay, I know where I was going with this. So I had a client that, that has been very jaded by other women, you know,
Mhm.
and it's not like a fear thing, like an intimidation kind of thing, is because we've been trapped, right? We've all had this rage and we've all have turned against each other as women. And I think that was the whole point of my podcast, of like walking through the fire and stuff, and how we can collectively come together as women and walk through that fear together and join hands, and to where we're not intimidated by each other. And even though, because I'm an introvert extrovert, so like you're the extrovert, right? So like there's a whole
I'm like, come
different,
on, let's go do the thing. They're like, no, I just need to go home. I'm like, no, no, come on, just go. They're like, no. So now I have to be discerning of like, not
yes,
everybody is wired the way that I am, but also to, I find it frustrating to have to second guess everyone's answer. Is your yes a yes
exactly.
and is your no a no? That's a lot of work. If everybody's second guessing everybody, if we could all just be authentically true to our truth, my yes is a yes, my no is a no, and
Yeah,
then we don't have to guess. There's no
yeah,
confusion, there's no second guessing, there's no gray area. You're actually being a better friend and more service to the people in your life if you can just be honest with your needs and wants, because then they know what to do. But when I don't know, or you say yes but it is a no, and then there's this weird funky energy because you didn't honor your own truth and boundaries, and now I'm over here trying to figure out why are you all funky and weird because you didn't honor your truth. But I don't know, I'm not in your head. Just say what you think and what you need and what you mean, and give yourself permission, and have safe people that can hold that. And if they can't, then they're not your people. I don't know.
yeah.
That's just my rant.
Now I know where I was going with it. I'm glad you went on your rant, because where I was going on my rant was going in is because we're women and we can feel it. We can
Oh my
feel
God.
do you know what
Yes.
that's where I was going with it. So I'm glad you went on your rant, and I'm glad I went on my rant, but that's, yeah,
You're
because
like, I'm not an idiot. I feel this. Your lips are
I feel
saying one
this.
thing and I'm
Like,
feeling the complete opposite. That's just like, what's wrong? I'm fine. Everybody knows fine's
no.
not fine.
Like, so, but I think, yeah, that's where I was. So yeah, we can definitely feel it. And it's like, you know, even your introverted friend, like she can feel like when you're not being true to yourself, you know, when you, because there's times where I have, you know, it's a protective mechanism too, is like we have to mask up when we go into, I'm an introvert, right? Sometimes I have to mask up to put that extrovert face on sometimes,
Not
you
me.
know what
I
I
just go
mean?
running out naked. Here I am.
See,
Ready.
now when I'm in my extrovert, sometimes I have to put my mask on and put my introverted side in, you know, because if not, then I stress myself out, and then I'm like, okay, why am I feeling this way, you know?
Right.
But yeah, and it's like, okay, be you, but then don't get upset when you are you're just standing, yeah, like and that was that you're just sitting there and you're not doing anything. If you speak up, and I think that's the one thing is like the fear of women is we've been silenced for so long. We have been silenced for so long, and we are afraid to
Seen and
speak
not
up. And I,
heard. Be a good girl.
Yes.
Don't disappoint anybody, right? Like
No, right.
obligation. I should say yes. I should go do this because, whatever, all of these excuses and reasons, but really honoring yourself first and foremost. Does this
Yeah.
feel right and aligned for me, regardless of, society, church, family, mothers, mother-in-laws say I should do this? Is like, no, but what is right for me in this
Yeah.
moment today? And it might be different tomorrow, and that's okay too. We're allowed to change our minds. We're allowed to have different times and energies depending on our cycle and where we are in our growth and evolution. It's okay to just be you. Just be unapologetically fucking you. That's how
Be
I want to end
yes.
this.
Untamed and beautiful is
Yes.
right. Like that's the whole point of the podcast, is just to be as untamed as fuck,
Yeah, and
beautiful
that's
in
your
every
authentic
way.
self.
And I so the best therapy that I ever had was watching Barbie, right? No amount of have you seen Barbie the movie yet?
Yeah, I didn't love it. Everyone said it was so good. It was a little, yeah. There was parts of it that were good, but I didn't love all of it. It was a little painful.
Well, it was just all of the conditioning, like the
Yep.
societal, like, it kind of was the best. I mean, I was in this moment. And then as soon as I watched Barbie, because Barbie just had such a significant meaning in my life, because it wasn't just all about beauty, the outside looks or whatever. And, Barbie could be anything. And that was my takeaway from it. And just when the one part where they were all like, the Ken dolls had like put a spell over the Barbies or whatever. And it was in that moment, it's like, we're too much. Or we're not enough, or we're
Oh,
too fat, or we're too skinny. You know what I mean? Like, and as women, it's just like break all of those fucking barriers, right? And become wild,
yeah.
And that's kind of like what the Barbies did. They got fucking wild, and they're like, you know what? We're just gonna do whatever we want, We're gonna play it back to to how you guys have treated us, and I'm not a huge feminist or anything like that, because men have their own issues and their own
Oh,
problems
they've
and
been
stuff like
so
that.
oppressed. Like,
Yeah.
honest to God, if I had to be a man, I would epically fail. Like, don't feel, don't cry, don't emote your emotions. Like,
Yeah.
just lock that shit down. I would fail. Like, I can't lock it down for 5 minutes. I've tried so many times. I remember one time with my
Right.
fiance, I was trying so hard not to cry. And I'm sure like my eyes were filled with tears, my lips were quivering. And in my head, this sounds so messed up, but I was like, dead puppies, dead puppies, dead puppies. Like, why they thought that wasn't going to make me cry, but I was literally fighting tooth and nail everything I had to not cry. And I lost it.
Yeah.
So I'm not wired to be that shut down. I couldn't imagine how hard it must be because, they do have feelings, they do have all of those things, and they have just been so programmed to not feel,
Mhm.
not be in touch with their emotions. And that's created
Yeah.
a whole nother podcast episode that we won't get into, but yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah. So, can you just tell the listeners and the people watching us, that are going to be watching, something that you do? I know I'm going to do a little background in the introduction and stuff like that. But is there services that you offer that kind of can help people go through this? Because I do have a big following and stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to help, women. I'm a confidence and clarity coach. And so, really helping women step into knowing who they are, expressing themselves authentically, owning the gifts that they were given so that they can just fully step into their purpose in their life and their families and their relationships, all of those areas. So, I do that through mindset coaching, through spirituality. There's a bunch of different modalities that I bring together. We do some inner child healing, some neurolinguistics. Like there's just a whole array of tools in my toolbox that I use to help women release those blocks, those societal beliefs, and get to the root cause of what those are so that we can heal and release them, so that they can step into their power, so they can own their gifts, own their light, and show up unapologetically themselves to unleash their confidence and have the inner knowing and inner trust in themselves to express, here's what I need, here's what I want, I'm unapologetically me, and take it or leave it. And so just watching them come into themselves and feel empowered and feel confident and feel clear in every aspect of their life just transforms everything. And so I love working with women that way. So I've got some group programs, we do some online things, we do some in-person things. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So you can connect with me on my website, souljourney.co. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, Michelle Bateman, Soul Journey. And or you could email me at souljourneyinfo@gmail.com. So those are all the ways they can connect with me, and we can hop on a call and see what's the best way that I could support you and what would be the best avenue and venue for you to do that.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Michelle, for being a part of the first episode of Untamed and Beautiful. And I am so excited to be working with you more on, I know we are kind of been discussing like retreats. So that will pop up here after like a couple months. We'll see what's going on. We'll kind of get those plans together. And I just want to say how proud and just how inspirational you have been, just meeting you just on our first little call, or even just our little messaging back and forth. And we are in such two different places, you know what I mean? Right. And we found each other, and I am just so blessed and grateful that you have come on my timeline, and we've been able to embrace each other as sisters and help each other grow and help each other walk through the fire, because I know there's going to be times where I'm going to message you and be like, hey, I need help, and vice versa. Just we are creating safe space for so many women to be able to do this. And that is my main purpose and mission, is to help as many women walk through that fire like the phoenix, or go through the transformation like the butterfly, or the little flower being planted. And
the lotus flower is actually my logo. Is the lotus comes up through the mud and through the dirt and emerges clean and pristine and beautiful every single time it comes through the mud. So in the darkness, the most beautiful things are created.
It is, from the darkness to the light. Yeah. Well, I love you, sister.
I love you too. Thank you for sharing this opportunity with me. And for those that want to walk the soul journey with us, we would love to have you and connect. And, if there's any questions people have, they can put them in the comments, and we'll do our best to connect there.
Yep. Sounds good. You have a great rest of your evening.
You too.